This week, I read Monster to Martyr, representing Mary Dyer. The term monster, or in the case of Mary Dyer, monstrous birth, has been used throughout history in religious, political, and gendered rhetoric to forward objectives. In the case of this article, Anne Miles offers a literary examination of how Anne Hutchinson came to symbolize the role of women during the Anatolian controversy of 1636 through 1638. She suggests that Hutchinson's story lives on through the words of John Winthrop, and his interpretation offers the story of a woman's downfall. The story of Mary Dyer has been mostly forgotten by history, yet her story, which offers more of her own voice, presents a martyr who challenged the Puritan patriarchy. In 1636, Anne Hutchinson had become a prominent religious figure in the Boston area. Hutchinson first offered women, and later men, a gathering place to discuss church sermons. As her parlor talks evolved into critiques of the colonial spiritual leaders, she was soon found to be in violation of dominant gender norms. Hutchinson's beliefs began to resemble Quaker beliefs that privileged individual institution should reside over institutional interpretation of the divine. Opposition into Hutchinson and her followers, later labeled Anatomians by Puritans, was led by John Winthrop. Much of Hutchinson's story comes to us from John Winthrop's A Short Story of the Rise, Reign, and Ruin of the Anatomians, Familists, and Libertines. American literary scholarship offers compelling studies which have addressed Hutchinson as a post-feminist and gender transgressor, as one who used language differently as a religious thinker, whose theology and radical social implications as a symbol of a new and threatening economic order. The Anatomian controversy of 1636 to 38 was quickly established as the dominant example of New England religious dissent, and its central figure, Hutchinson, came to symbolize the possibilities for women's religious expression. As Miles points out, the larger narrative of Anatomian women's descent was clearly defined by a compelling second chapter. The story of Mary Dyer and her transformation from silenced object to speaking subject, from Anatomian monster to a Quaker martyr. Dyer would later make a name for herself after leaving Massachusetts and returning as a Quaker 20 years later. Miles' article focuses on the literary legacy left by Dyer and its meaning for us today. According to Miles, Dyer merits a place in early American literature because the history we have with her in it enables us to see and to articulate possibilities for the sustained practice of female descent that are nowhere else so clearly in evidence. Mary's entry into the public record came in 1637 as the mother of a notorious monstrous birth, described by Winthrop. The manner of the discovery was very strange also, for it was that very day Mistress Hutchinson was cast out of the church for her monstrous errors and notorious falsehoods. For being commanded to depart the assembly, Mistress Dyer accompanied her, which a stranger observing asked another what woman that was. The other answered, it was the woman who had the monster. Lindell Buchanan's A Study of Maternal Rhetoric, Anne Hutchinson, Monsters, and the Anatomian Controversy, suggests that opponents and supporters have throughout history employed the term monster in maternal rhetoric to forward their own economic, political, and religious objectives. According to Marie Helene Hewitt, pre-Enlightenment thought held that the natural order of a generation called for the father's image to be replicated in his offspring. Malformed children indicated disruptions to the natural process. Rather than reproducing the paternal image, they instead bore witness to the intense thoughts and desires of the mother during conception or pregnancy. The fact of the birth and its particular deformed anatomies signified for Winthrop and other the hidden workings of the Anatomian heresy. Dyer's Quaker convictions would eventually lead to her execution. Unlike Hutchinson, Dyer was able to express her motives in writing, ensuring her story be passed on with her perspective and motives intact. Within the Anglo-American literature of Anatomian heresy, Dyer thus became a classic sign of how spiritual error at once springs from and reproduces female monstrosity.